Wil je spazakje wil? Met alleen geskoek. Nida. Now, one of the words that we use in school, we call our class Wabanaki languages. Wabanaki languages is what we call the course. It used to be Wabanaki language, but there's no such thing as a Wabanaki language. There's many different dialects of that way of speaking. And so we had to throw this on to appease the ones that say, well, there's no one Wabanaki language. Well, no, of course not. There's no one English language either. Well, of course there is. And I say, oh, is that true? Is there only one way to speak English? Y'all think that's true? I bet you that ain't true at all. Or if you come from New York, they talk a little funny down there. They talk English down there too. I spoke to people from England. The people from England say the English from England is so diverse that the people from the north, you can barely understand the people from the south. There's so many different dialects of English, and that I can't seem to do it, but I keep practicing that Cockney. The way they speak Cockney in England is so odd to speak sometimes. So even in the English language, there are many different dialects of how they speak. So if you don't think so, wait a minute, Sue. You grew up, you hung out around Connecticut there, down there, in Connecticut. So they talk differently down that way somewhere. And even along the coast here, you go off the place and these fishermen, like that one that looked like Zazus the other day. Some of these fishermen with long beards, yeah, you'll see how they talk sometime, yeah. They talk a little different, yeah. Or I hear you guys say that sometimes, like an idea. Okay, we all need idea. I have one idea. Really? All the deers I got had two eyes. So they always put the R where there's not supposed to be an R, and they take an R out where there's supposed to be an R. I got an idea to go get the car. It's like, hey, wait a minute, the R's are in the wrong place in your language there. So that's how even the English language has different dialects. We in Wabanaki have different dialects. There's no one language. And English people, these Europeans, have this urge to make everything simple and only one rule. That's what that Constitution is. Okay, these are the rules everybody has to follow. Not everybody's going to follow them. They try to blanket everything in one rule. That's what laws are. They say, Nita, this community has to follow this law. Everybody lives the same way. That can't be done. Someone who's always told me that if you write something down, it dies. If you let it grow and change with your environment, then it'll always be alive. Our language is that way. We never had a written language until the 1980s. And it was out of the wisdom of the US government that said, oh, those poor people, they don't have a written language. We should teach them how to write their own language so that they will have a written language like us. And they really meant to help us. What happened was they gave grants to people. They said, here, we'll give colleges and linguists and people that want grants to go help these poor, uneducated Indians get their own language written down so they can be smart like us. So they tried to help us. What happened was it backfired. Every community got a different person, a different linguist. Some places didn't even get linguists. Carol, that one that wrote the Penobscot, he wasn't a linguist, was he? Was he a pathologist?
Yeah, he was an armchair linguist.
Armchair linguist? he was a pathologist that wanted to grow up to be a linguist. So he got a grant and he wanted to help create the language, a written language. We went 20,000 years plus without a written language. There was no need for us to have a written language. We did fine up until they came to each community. And they tried to have us in each community form a written language. And it was filtered through the person that wrote it down. You could ask somebody, oh, how do you say yes in your language? Uh-huh. And then a different person would go to a Mi'kmaq person. How do you say yes in your language? Uh-huh. And it wrote down uh-huh and aha. And now, when it got on paper and in the books, they say, oh, those are two different languages. They're not two different languages. It's a different way of saying different words. It's the same language with different words. That's all it is. For instance, in Penobscot, The word for beaver is damakwe. In any of the other dialects, damakwe means someone has the jaws that can break things and chew them in half. In Passamaquoddy, the word for beaver is pkwabit. In all the languages, they know pkwabit means red tooth. It describes the animal. It's not a noun. It's not a thing. It's the description of the animal. It's either dialect can understand the other. It's just that when you've never heard either language, oh, those are two different languages. I always use Graham as a good example of languages. Whenever she's with Teresa, if you've ever heard Graham speak, Joanna, she would say, aha, edgy woolgiskak. And she always speaks so softly and so lovingly. But Teresa, and she's saying the same thing. But to a person that has never heard either language before, oh, well, they're speaking two different languages. No, they're not. Teresa's just all wired up on coffee. Joanna's all calm and relaxed.